If you ever go to the Redwood Forest in America and see Cabin 113 on an old map at night, for God's sake, don't go that way. This story was sent to me by a man who is no longer alive. His last email ended with just one sentence. If you hear 3 knocks on the door, don't answer. 2019. Ethan Carter, who lives in Seattle, USA, was a famous vlogger. He would go to places where people were afraid to go and make videos. His channel had millions of subscribers, but in the past few months his views had started to dwindle. One night, he received a strange email. The subject was just that. Cabin 113. There was no name in the email. There was just an old map, a picture, and a line. If you really want to show the truth, then come here. Ethan opened the picture. An old wooden cabin among the thick trees. All the windows were closed. Only the front door was half open. Someone had written in the corner of the picture by hand, "He's still inside." Ethan laughed. Perfect content. He immediately called his friends. Lucas, Emma, and Noah. The 4 of them had been to many scary places before. Lucas said as soon as he saw the picture, "I don't like this place." Emma asked, "Why?" Lucas fell silent. "I've seen this cabin before." Everyone was surprised. "Where?" "In my grandfather's old diary." The room suddenly fell silent. 2 days later, the 4 of them drove to Northern California in an SUV. As they approached the Redwood Forest, the mobile signal began to disappear. The GPS was repeatedly shutting down. The sky was covered with dark clouds. The forest was unusually quiet. No birdsong, no wind, just trees. Extremely tall trees. It felt like they had entered another world. By evening, they reached a small town. There was only an old gas station open. An old man was sitting there drinking coffee. Ethan took out a map. "Sir, where is Cabin 113? The old man's hands began to tremble. He slowly closed the map. "This place doesn't exist, but it's on the map." The old man only said one thing. "If you can get back before nightfall, then definitely come." Lucas immediately said to turn the car around, but Ethan was not one of those who believed. They had reached the forest at 8 o'clock at night. It had started to rain. The road was covered in mud. The SUV suddenly stopped. Noah tried to start it several times. Nothing happened. The 4 of them were forced to walk. 10 minutes later, they saw a rusty board among the trees. It was difficult to read. Cabin 113. Emma started recording the video. This place really exists. As they moved forward, the cabin appeared among the trees. Exactly as in the picture. The door was half open. The windows were closed. And black crows were sitting on the roof. The air suddenly became cold. Lucas whispered, "We should go back." Ethan smiled and entered. The cabin smelled strongly. There were old scratches on the walls. There was a thick layer of dust on the floor. But there was something strange. There was only one type of footprint in the room. And they were not going out from inside. Rather, they were going in through the door. And they would end up there. As if the person who came in had never left. Emma moved the camera closer. "Guys, look at this." The same sentence was written on the wall in red over and over again. "Don't answer the door. Don't open the door." Noah started laughing. There must be a prank. At that moment, from the floor above, "Stop." The 4 of them looked at each other. Then again. Knock, knock. Someone was walking, even though the cabin had been empty for years. Ethan raised his flashlight. "I'll come and see." Lucas grabbed his hand. "No. Why?" Lucas's face had turned yellow. "That's what my grandfather wrote in his diary. If there's a voice from above, then never go." Ethan laughed and pulled his hand away and started climbing the stairs. First step, second step, third step. Suddenly, the electricity in the entire cabin turned on for a moment, even though there was no electricity there. As soon as the light went out, Ethan was gone. Only his camera was lying on the stairs. And in the darkness above, a woman's low voice was heard. "Finally, you guys have arrived too." At that moment, on the main door downstairs, there were 3 loud knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Emma asked in a trembling voice, "Who's outside?" And from the other side of the door, came Ethan's voice. "Open the door. I'm stuck outside." But Ethan, there were 3 consecutive knocks on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Lucas, Emma, and Noah, standing inside the cabin, looked at each other's faces. The 3 of them were breathing heavily. Ethan's voice came from outside again. "Lucas, open the door quickly. There's something upstairs. It's going to kill me." Emma moved towards the door helplessly, but Lucas grabbed her arm tightly. "No, but it's Ethan." "It's not Ethan," Noah said angrily. "Are you crazy?" His voice is coming through clearly. Lucas's forehead was sweaty. "My grandfather wrote something in his diary. If someone inside the cabin suddenly starts making noises from outside, then he's no longer human." Hearing this, Emma's body felt a thrill. At that moment, Ethan's voice changed from outside. "If you don't open the door, I'll come myself." Then there was complete silence. Noah plucked up the courage to peek out through the thin crack under the door. He immediately backed away. His face had turned white. "WH, what did you see?" Emma asked in a trembling voice. Noah's tongue was not supporting him. Finally, he barely said, "He's standing barefoot." "So?" "His feet are upside down." A cold wave ran through the room. At that moment, the sound of Ethan's camera recording began to come from upstairs. Someone had turned on the camera. There was only darkness on the screen, but a woman was humming softly. Then suddenly a face appeared in the video. An old woman, whose eyes were completely black. She was looking straight into the camera. Then she smiled and said, "Another one has come." The video immediately stopped. Emma dared to look up at the stairs. There was complete silence at the top. "We have to find Ethan." Lucas nodded. "If he's alive." The 3 of them slowly started climbing the stairs. The wood creaked with each step. When they reached the top, they found a long, dark corridor-like section. There were 4 doors on either side, all closed, except for the last door. It was slowly moving on its own, as if someone had just left from inside. Noah put the flashlight in. The room was empty. Only an old wooden chair was placed in the middle. And on the chair, Ethan's camera. But he was lying on the stairs below. Emma said in surprise, "How did it get here?" As Noah picked up the camera, someone grabbed his leg from under the chair. "Ah!" Noah screamed loudly. Lucas immediately pulled him up. He looked down. There was nothing there, only the floor. But Noah's leg had 5 fresh fingernail marks. Blood started to flow from them. At that moment, the entire cabin began to shake violently. The doors began to close automatically.
Bang, bang, bang.
All the doors in the corridor closed at once. Only the last door remained open. From inside it came the sound of a baby crying. Emma whispered, "That voice. Why does it sound like my sister?" Lucas immediately said, "She's seducing you." But Emma was already captivated. She slowly started moving towards the room. Noah tried to stop her, but she jerked her hand away. She entered the door. The next moment, the door slammed shut. They both tried to open the door with all their might. To no avail. Emma's screams were coming from inside. "Save me. She's after me." Then suddenly, the scream stopped. Silence. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. Then Emma's voice came from inside. "Lucas, open the door." Lucas stepped back.
No.
Noah was shocked. "It's Emma." "No." Lucas had tears in his eyes. It's the same mistake everyone makes. Suddenly, an old picture on the hallway wall fell to the ground. Its glass shattered. Behind the picture was a yellowed piece of paper. Lucas quickly pulled it out. It was a page from a diary. It read, "This cabin is alive. It reads your fears. Then you hear the voice of the person you trust the most. If you answer, he will take your place." The date was written below, October 14th, 1986, and the signature, Henry Carter. Lucas' hands began to tremble. "This is my grandfather's name." Before he could say anything else, a terrifying sound came from below. The main door was slowly opening on its own. Chirr! The rain blew in, and in front of the door, 3 people stood. The first, Ethan. The second,
Emma.
the third, a little girl, whose face was covered in blood. The three of them smiled together and spoke in one voice. Now it's your turn. The main door was wide open. The cold wind of the rain was blowing in, but Lucas and Noah's eyes were only fixed on the three beings standing at the door. Ethan, Emma, and that little girl with a bloody face. All three were smiling in the same way. And the scariest thing was that their eyelids were not blinking at all. Noah said in a trembling voice, These are not human." Suddenly Ethan slowly turned his head to the right. So right that he heard a bone snap in his neck. Crap. But the smile remained on his face. "You two have been keeping us waiting for too long." Lucas immediately tried to close the door, but the door had become like stone. It wasn't even moving. At that moment, the bloody girl slowly started walking towards them, but her feet were not even touching the ground. She was floating a few inches in the air. "Run!" Lucas grabbed Noah's hand, and the two ran towards the top floor. Strange laughter echoed from behind. It seemed as if the entire cabin was laughing behind them. When they reached the corridor, the scene had changed. Where there had been 4 doors before, now there were more than 20 doors. Different numbers were written on each door. 101, 117, 209, 666, and last of all, 113. Noah said in surprise. These weren't there before. Lucas touched the wall. The wall was wet, as if it wasn't water, but blood was seeping from inside. Suddenly, a door opened automatically. Inside was an old bedroom. In the middle was a mirror, very large, from floor to ceiling. But the strange thing was that only Lucas could be seen in the mirror. Noah's reflection was not there. "What is this?" Noah touched the mirror. The next moment, a woman appeared behind Lucas in the mirror. Long black hair, white face, and completely black eyes. She was slowly approaching Lucas. But when they both looked back, the room was empty. Only the woman was in the mirror. Lucas looked away in horror, but a whisper was heard from the mirror. "I remember your family." Lucas's heart almost stopped. "Who are you?" The woman smiled and replied. "Your grandfather asked the same question." The temperature in the room suddenly dropped. Ice began to form on the mirror. Then words began to form on it automatically. "Henry failed. Lucas is next." Lucas immediately picked up a chair and slammed it on the mirror.
Bang.
The glass shattered into hundreds of pieces. But the same woman was still smiling in each piece. Suddenly, the lights in the entire cabin turned on. This time the lights didn't go out. Every room lit up. And now they saw the entire building for the first time. There were hundreds of pictures on the walls. Each picture showed different people. Some were policemen. Some were hikers. Some were children. Some were families. Everyone had a look of fear on their faces. Dates were written underneath. 1968, 1975, 1986, 1999, 2008, 2019, and then 2026. In this picture, Lucas and Noah stood in the exact same clothes they were wearing at that time, but both of their eyes were completely black. And the same woman was standing behind them. The flashlight fell from Noah's hand. This is impossible." Just then, the sound of someone's footsteps began to be heard from below. 1, 2, 3, 4. But the sound was not just one person's. As if dozens of people were climbing the stairs at once. The footsteps were getting closer and closer. Then, at the end of the corridor, several shadows emerged from the darkness. They all looked like humans, but they didn't have faces. Just smooth white skin. They began to move towards the two of them silently. Noah nervously opened a door. "Come in." The two quickly entered the room and closed the door. The room was small. Only a table, an old wardrobe, and dozens of diaries scattered on the floor. Lucas picked up a diary. On the first page it said, "Henry Carter, his grandfather's diary." He quickly turned the pages. His blood dried up when he read a sentence on the last page. This cabin was not built in a place, but above a door. The next line read, "Whoever dies here, he does not perish, he becomes the guardian of the door." And the last line, written with trembling hands. If my grandson ever comes here, tell him never to open the basement door. Lucas raised his head in surprise. Basement. At that moment, someone started knocking loudly from under the floor. Knock, knock, knock. Then the wooden floor split in half. A rusty iron door appeared in the darkness below. On this door were only 2 words written in blood. Don't open. But before he could step back, a small child's voice came from inside the door. Grandpa, get me out. Lucas's body felt as if life had left him, because this voice was exactly the same as the childhood recording of his late father. And then, the iron door handle started to turn slowly by itself. The iron door handle was slowly turning. See, chararar. The room was so quiet that Lucas and Noah could hear their own heartbeats clearly. Then the same innocent voice came from inside again. Grandpa, I'm afraid of the dark. Lucas' hands began to tremble. It was his father, Daniel Carter's childhood voice. He had listened to this recording many times, but it was impossible. His father had died 5 years ago. Noah screamed, "She's tricking you. Don't open the door." At that moment, a small hand came out from under the door. It was the hand of a 7 or 8-year-old child.
White,
trembling, and there were fresh blood stains on it. Please, don't leave me alone. Lucas took a step forward, but suddenly he remembered the last sentence of his grandfather's diary. It steals the voice of your loved ones, but they're never behind the door. He pulled himself back with all his strength. The next moment, that little hand began to grow longer, longer, and longer, until it reached the other corner of the room. Then its fingers began to twist like spider legs. Noah, in fear, raised the old wooden handle like an axe and hit the hand with all his strength.
Bang!
A terrible scream echoed throughout the cabin. The hand immediately disappeared inside the door. But then, the entire cabin went into a rage. The walls began to shake. Dust began to fall from the ceiling. And hundreds of voices began to be heard from all sides at once. You injured her. Now she will come herself. Suddenly the door to the room opened loudly. The faceless shadows in the corridor were now closer than ever. They were walking slowly, but with each step their number was increasing. 10, 20, 50, then maybe more than 100. They all had the same number burned on their chests. 113. Lucas put the diary in his jacket. She won't let us leave here alive. Noah replied, Let's get out of here first. The 2 of them ran. They passed through the corridor and entered another room. This room was different from the rest. There were children's drawings on the walls. A house, a tree, the sun,
and a black woman.
The same woman was in each picture. But in each new picture she was getting closer and closer. In the last picture, she was standing behind a single child. Below, in childlike handwriting, was a single sentence. She says if we see her, she can see us too. Noah looked away immediately. This place is going to drive you crazy. An old tape recorder was in the corner of the room. It suddenly started up on its own. After a snort, a male voice was heard. If anyone is listening to this recording, my name is Officer Martin Hayes. We came here in 1999 looking for 6 missing children. We set the cabin on fire. We saw it burn with our own eyes. But the next morning, the cabin was back in place. There was a moment of silence in the recording. Then the man spoke, crying, She doesn't die in the fire. She just waits for new people. Suddenly, a scream was heard in the recording. She's standing behind me, and the tape stopped. At that moment, Noah realized that the room was unusually quiet. He slowly turned around and looked back. Lucas was not there. Lucas. No answer. Lucas. Only his own voice bounced off the walls. Then Lucas's voice was heard from the other end of the room. Noah. I'm here. Noah moved toward the voice. But as he walked forward, the room was getting longer and longer. The walls were receding. And Lucas's voice too. Come quickly. I'm alone. Noah started to run. But the more he ran, the farther he got. Suddenly, someone put a hand on his shoulder. He looked back in shock. It was Lucas. What are you doing here? Noah asked in surprise. I was looking for you. A strange smile appeared on Lucas's face. Really? Then who is running after me? Noah looked back slowly. In the darkness, another Lucas stood. Then another one right next to him. Then a third. Then a fourth. In a few seconds, the corridor was filled with dozens of Lucases. All the same. All were smiling. And they all said it at once. Who's the real one? The flashlight fell from Noah's hand. Darkness fell. Only their laughter echoed. When Noah picked up the flashlight again, all the fake Lucases were gone. Only one person was left standing. Lucas. But his eyes had turned completely black. He slowly walked towards Noah. Noah, you're too late. At that moment, the walkie-talkie in Noah's jacket pocket started playing automatically. After a loud snort, a strange male voice was heard. If you're listening to this message, then you're not alone. There's a tunnel under this cabin, and that's where the woman's real grave is. If the grave isn't found before sunrise, then you'll all be part of cabin 113 forever. The walkie-talkie suddenly stopped, and at that moment, someone outside the cabin knocked again. 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. But this time, the knock wasn't on the door, but it was coming from the other side of the window glass. And when Noah looked out the window, he found dozens of people standing, with faces exactly like his own. Noah froze like a stone in front of the window. The rain was still pouring down heavily, but those standing on the other side of the glass were not moving an inch. Everyone's faces were exactly like Noah's. The same eyes, the same hair, the same clothes. The only difference was that all of their eyes were completely black. Then one of them put his hand on the glass. The other did the same. In a few moments, dozens of hands had frozen on the window. And then they all said together, "You have come to take our place." The glass began to tremble. Tick, tick, tick. Thin cracks began to form. Noah stepped back. What are these? Lucas, who was standing next to him, was also silent with fear, but suddenly he remembered his grandfather Henry Carter's diary in his pocket. He quickly opened the last few pages. On one page was a map drawn in red ink. The map showed a secret tunnel under the cabin, and at the end of this tunnel was only one word: grave. Beneath it, Henry had written, "She cannot die as long as her bones are in place." At that moment, the entire building shook violently. The window glass shattered.
Bang!
Dozens of imitation Noahs began to jump in, but surprisingly, they turned into smoke as soon as they landed on the floor. Only one remained. He slowly stood up straight and smiled and said, "The real Noah, only one can remain." He pounced on Noah in the blink of an eye. Both fell to the ground. Punches, kicks, screams. Noah felt as if he were fighting his own reflection. Finally, he picked up a thick wooden plank lying nearby and hit the creature on the head with all his strength. The creature turned into black smoke with a heartbreaking scream. But as he left, he only said one sentence. "She's awake." At that moment, a woman's voice was heard singing from the other end of the corridor, the same eerie lullaby that they had first heard in the video. Lucas turned the flashlight in that direction. A long shadow was slowly moving towards them in the darkness. Her hair was dragging on the ground. Her white dress was soaked with blood. And in her hand was an old lantern with a green fire burning. She raised her head. For the first time, they saw her face clearly. The woman did not look human. Her mouth was much longer than usual. Her lips were chapped. And instead of eyes, there was only black space. She smiled. "Henry's grandson. Finally, you're here." Lucas's blood froze. "Who are you?" The woman didn't answer. She only said, "Before we reach the grave, you'll both die." And the next moment, she disappeared. "Come on." Lucas grabbed Noah's hand, and the two of them ran towards the basement. The iron door in the floor was now fully open. There were stone stairs down, and there was a strong stench coming from there, like years-old corpses rotting. The two of them gathered their courage and started to descend. There were strange markings on each staircase, ancient symbols, the sight of which gave them a headache. After descending about 50 stairs, they arrived at a long tunnel. The walls of the tunnel were not made of brick. They were made of bones. Thousands of human bones, stacked on top of each other. Noah said, tremblingly, This is impossible." Lucas brought the flashlight closer. There were also dozens of skulls buried among the bones. And each skull had the same number engraved on its forehead. 113. After walking a few steps into the tunnel, they found an old iron door. Something was written on it in Latin. Someone had later engraved only one sentence in English below. "Whoever enters will not return the same as before." As soon as the door was pushed open, a vast underground hall was revealed. A stone coffin was placed in the middle of the hall. Dozens of candles were burning around it. Although no one was there, a name was engraved on the coffin lid. Elizabeth Wraith. Lucas opened the diary in surprise. Henry had written the same name. Below it was written, "In 1891, Elizabeth Wraith was buried alive on charges of witchcraft. But before she died, she placed a curse. Whoever opens her grave will forever be a prisoner of her spirit." Noah whispered, "Then let the grave remain closed." But at that moment, from inside the coffin, thump, they both shuddered. Then again, thump, thump, as if someone was trying to get out. The candles began to go out one by one. The hall was plunged into darkness. Only the sound of scratching could be heard from inside the coffin. SNRRRR. Then a woman's faint voice was heard. "Henry, are you back?" Lucas said in a trembling voice. "I am not Henry." There was silence for a few seconds. Then a loud laugh rang out from inside the coffin. "I know. You are his blood." At that moment, the heavy stone lid of the coffin slowly began to slide open on its own. And from inside, a long, black hand emerged, with dried blood still on its fingers. The coffin stone was slowly sliding aside, rattling. The underground hall was so silent that only the sound of the stone rubbing echoed. Lucas and Noah stood still in their places. The black hand that had come out of the coffin had now completely come out. Its long fingers were covered in dried blood, and its nails were as if no one had cut them for years. Suddenly, the hand froze hard on the edge of the coffin, and a woman slowly started to come out. Long black hair covered her face. The white dress was stained with dirt and blood. Her body smelled like the grave had been opened and closed again many times. She stood up straight. Then she slowly brushed her hair aside. This was Elizabeth Wraith. His face was unusually white, but his eyes, there were no eyes at all, just two deep black voids. He smiled and said, "I've waited for over a century. Finally, Henry's family has returned." Lucas dared to ask, "What do you want from us?" Elizabeth raised her hand instead of answering. Suddenly, the entire hall began to change. The walls disappeared. Screams echoed in the air, and a scene emerged in front of the two of them. The year was 1891, a small American village. Dozens of people stood there with torches in their hands. In the middle was a young woman chained. It was Elizabeth. People were screaming, "It's a witch. It takes children. Bury her alive." An old man stepped forward. "If she is left alive, she will kill everyone." Elizabeth smiled with bloodied lips. "I will not die. I will wait for you all." Then the people locked her in a wooden coffin. The dirt began to fall on her. Her screams were coming from inside. Then the screams fell silent. And at the last moment, only one sentence was heard. "After me, your descendants will not die peacefully either." The scene ended abruptly. Lucas and Noah stood in the hall again. Elizabeth was still in front of them. "You saw? They killed me," Noah said softly. "So you were innocent then?" Elizabeth was silent for a few moments. Then she started laughing out loud. Her laughter echoed throughout the hall. "No, that was only half the truth." She opened her mouth. Inside it were hundreds of human teeth. "I really used to take children. I got strength from their fear. And now, I need you both." Saying that, she disappeared in the blink of an eye. The next moment, she was standing right behind Noah. Noah tried to turn around, but his body stopped moving. Elizabeth whispered close to his ear, "You will die first." She placed her hand on Noah's chest. Noah screamed in horror. He felt as if something was being pulled from his body. His skin began to turn yellow rapidly. Lucas immediately took out his grandfather's diary. Quickly flipping through the pages, he found a note. "She doesn't attack the body, she attacks the soul." Another line was written below. "If you ever encounter her, use the light." Lucas immediately shone his powerful flashlight in Elizabeth's face. As the light hit, Elizabeth screamed in horror and backed away. Smoke began to come out of her skin. "No, this is not light. Turn it off." In a few moments, she disappeared back into the darkness. Noah had fallen to the ground. His breathing was rapid, but he was alive. At that moment, a crack appeared in the wall of the hall. Then another. Then a third. The entire hall began to shake. The coffin began to close on its own. Lucas saw that an old leather box was placed under the coffin. Together, the two of them pulled it out.
Inside,
Old photos, some letters, and a black leather journal. The first page had a name written on it. Henry Carter. This was Henry's second diary. Lucas opened the last page anxiously. It read, "I couldn't finish it. I could only imprison it again. But to maintain this imprisonment, a member of the Carter family has to come here every 40 years. The diary almost fell from Lucas's hand. "That means," Noah said slowly, "your family has to make a sacrifice." At that moment, a line hidden at the bottom of the last page began to light up, as if the ink was still being written. It read, "This time you won't make the sacrifice. Your friend will." Lucas and Noah looked at each other at the same time. Suddenly, the ground beneath Noah's feet cracked. He started to fall into the darkness, screaming, "Lucas!" Lucas tried his best to grab his hand, but could only touch his fingers. Noah disappeared into the darkness. A few seconds later, only one voice came from below. "Lucas, I'm not the only one down here." And then, a dozen different voices spoke at once. "We've been waiting for this for 200 years. Noah's scream echoed in the darkness, falling silent. Lucas knelt on the edge of the pit. "Noah!" There was no answer. Only the cold air was rising from the depths. Then, a faint voice was heard. "Lucas, don't come down." It was Noah's voice. But immediately after that, dozens of other voices echoed. "Come down. We've been waiting for you. You are the last guardian." Lucas immediately took out his rope, which he had brought with him for hiking in the forest. He tied one end to a stone pillar and began to descend into the pit with the other end. As he went down, strange markings began to appear on the walls. The same markings that he had seen in the tunnel above. But now fresh blood was flowing on them. About 50 feet down, his feet hit the ground. He looked around in the light of the flashlight. He was standing in a huge cave. In the middle of the cave was an ancient stone circle, and inside that circle, hundreds of skeletons stood. Yes, standing. No one was lying on the ground. It was as if they had all turned to stone, waiting for someone. At the far end of the cave, Noah lay unconscious. Lucas ran towards him. As soon as he touched Noah, all the skeletons' heads turned towards him at once. Crrrr. The sound of crunching bones echoed throughout the cave. Lucas's blood froze. One by one, all the skeletons began to move. Blue fire began to burn in the sockets of their empty eyes. Then one of them stepped forward. A rusty metal tag hung around his neck. It read, "Henry Carter." Lucas's breath hitched. "Grandpa?" The skeleton nodded slowly. Then a heavy, broken voice came out. "I've been waiting for you." Tears welled up in Lucas's eyes. "You are alive?" Henry shook his head in the negative. "No. I died 2,024 days ago." But he wouldn't let our souls go free. The other skeleton standing behind Henry also slowly began to speak. A police officer, a woman, 2 children, an elderly man. All of them were people from different eras. They all had the same thing in common. "We are his prisoners." Henry extended his bony hand towards Lucas. In his palm was an old silver cross-shaped pendant. "This is the last sign of our family. It may weaken Elizabeth, but not the end." Lucas took the pendant. As soon as he held it in his hand, The entire cave was filled with white light, and for the first time, he saw the true form of the cave. Thousands of human souls were imprisoned in the walls. They were trapped inside the stones like glass, reaching out for help. Suddenly, loud laughter echoed in the cave. Elizabeth slowly emerged from the darkness. But now she was not the same as before. Her body seemed to be made up of many human bodies. Long black arms were coming out of her back. Her hair was crawling on the ground like snakes. And her voice, not one. It was the combination of the voices of dozens of people. "Henry, you brought your family before me again." Henry stepped forward and said, "Today will be the end of everything." Elizabeth started laughing. "You still think you can win?" Then he raised his hand. Suddenly, all the skeletons started screaming. Their bones started breaking. Henry also fell to the ground. Lucas. His power is not from the grave. It's connected to his name. Lucas was shocked. Name? Henry gathered his last courage and said, "His real name is written on the real grave. If he erases it, then she will become weak." At that moment, Elizabeth grabbed Henry with her long arm. In a few moments, Henry's skeleton turned into ashes. Only his last voice remained in the air. "Save Noah." The cave began to shake violently. Lucas ran, throwing Noah over his shoulder. In the light of the flashlight, he saw a small stone tomb on the back wall of the cave. A thick layer of dirt had settled on it. He brushed the dirt away with his hand. Slowly, the letters began to appear. Elizabeth and Wraith. Lucas took a knife from his pocket. He was about to scratch the name when someone grabbed his wrist tightly. It was Elizabeth. Her face was now directly in front of Lucas. Her breath smelled of the rot of the grave. She whispered, "If you erase my name, then I will be finished. But you will not survive either." Lucas looked at her, then to the unconscious Noah, then to his grandfather's ashes. He gripped the knife tighter. Elizabeth's smile disappeared, and for the first time, fear appeared on her face. Elizabeth's cold fingers were still gripping Lucas' wrist tightly. For the first time, fear was visible in the empty sockets of her dark eyes. The cave was shaking. Stones were falling from the roof. Somewhere in the distance, Noah lay unconscious, and Henry Carter's ashes were still scattered on the ground. Elizabeth spoke slowly. "If you erase my name, then I won't just die. This whole place will end too. And you too. Lucas was silent for a few moments, looking at her. Then he smiled. "If you live, then thousands more will die." Saying this, he struck the name engraved on the grave with all his strength. Khrr. Elizabeth. The first letter of the name broke off. At that moment, Elizabeth screamed so terrifyingly that the walls of the cave began to crack. Her body began to disintegrate like smoke.
But she was still not finished.
She screamed angrily. "I will be back." She stretched out her long black arms towards Lucas. But Lucas was not going to stop. She began to cut out the entire name one by one with a knife. Elizabeth and Wraith. The cave began to shake more as each letter was erased. The souls imprisoned in the walls began to scream. Then, suddenly, the screams changed. They were no longer of fear. They were screams of freedom. The souls began to emerge from the walls in the form of thousands of white lights. Each soul was rising towards the sky. A face emerged from these lights. Henry Carter. He smiled for the first time and looked at Lucas. "You have done what I could not do 40 years ago. What I could not do 40 years ago." Then he disappeared into the light. Elizabeth's body was now rapidly breaking down. Her long hair was turning to ash. Her screams echoed throughout the forest. But at the last moment, she began to laugh. A strange, cold, and terrifying laugh. "You understand. It's all over?" She pointed to the cave wall with a trembling hand. There was an ancient symbol carved on the stone. As soon as its last letter was erased, the symbol glowed with red light. Elizabeth said with her last breath, "I was only the guardian of the door. The real thing is still sleeping." As she said this, her body turned to ash and scattered to the ground. Suddenly, the entire cave began to collapse. Lucas immediately picked Noah up on his shoulder and ran towards the tunnel. Rocks were falling from behind. The walls of bone were breaking. As they ran through the tunnel, they felt as if someone was running after them. But every time they turned around, no one was there. Finally, they climbed the basement stairs and reached the cabin. But the cabin was now falling apart. The walls were on fire. The windows were breaking on their own. Lucas opened the main door with all his strength. The two fell out into the forest. Just a few seconds later, Redwood Cabin 113 sank into the ground with a loud explosion. Where the cabin had once been, now there was only a deep hole. And then, that too slowly closed. As if nothing had ever been there. 3 months later, Noah had fully recovered. He never mentioned the events after that night. Lucas closed his YouTube channel. He buried both of Henry's diaries in a secret place. Both swore they would never return to that forest. When the police were notified, they found only charred trees. There was no sign of Cabin 113. No tunnel. No cave. No grave. According to official records, no such place ever existed. 6 months later, Lucas was sitting in his apartment late at night. It was raining. He had just gotten up to drink coffee when a new email arrived on his laptop. Subject: Cabin 113. His heart started beating faster. He opened the email with shaking hands. Inside was just one picture. The picture showed a new wooden cabin, but it wasn't in the redwood forest, but in another forest covered in snow. There was a wooden board on the door. It read, Cabin 114. Lucas's face flushed. At that moment, on the door of his apartment, there were 3 knocks. Knock, knock, knock. He plucked up the courage to go closer to the door and asked, who is it? There was silence for a few moments. Then a soft, familiar voice came from outside. Lucas, open the door. The voice belonged to Henry Carter. But Henry had been free. Or maybe had never been free. The end. Or maybe the beginning.